What's up, Barbarians? Today we have the Frenzy Barb, and I really like this. Frenzy Barb is pretty awesome. I like using this build for Nightmare Dungeons, escalating Nightmare Dungeons, Strong Rooms, Helltide. Pit pushing is good, but the pit bosses do take a bit longer. Okay, so we're going to show off a quick Nightmare Dungeon and Strong Room. Our resistances are almost maxed out, so we do need to use Soothing Spice. We could also use another one that just uses Fire and Lightning, but I prefer Soothing Spice. And I always like putting on extra attack speed with Lucky Hit Chance. Frenzy just kills everything pretty much in one hit. Of course, this is a T4 Nightmare Dungeon. And we will also show off a Strong Room. And then we're going to show off half of a Pit Push. And as you notice, I don't have any of the damage on except for the overpowers. And when we get to the Nightmare, once we get to the... Okay, we're not going to do this. Oh, there's the Butcher! Look at that, he's dead. And when we get to the Pit Push, you'll notice that we have a lot of overpower all the time. I'm trying to pick these things up here. Okay, here we are at the Strong Room. Not the best options. We'll do additional ambushes, tethering, and lunatics. What I like about Frenzy in Strong Rooms is it literally cuts everything up as fast as it can get out there. This is... I like this over Flay, where Flay does... You have to wait for things to die. But also with Flay, if you have the Shattered Vow, that would be a lot better. But I didn't have a Shattered Vow, and I don't know if everyone does. But with Frenzy, as soon as you get to them, everyone's dead. Even Steel Grasp can kill enemies for you. But the best thing about Strong Rooms is all the Obsessite that you get. By far the best way to farm for Obsessite. So super fast for clearing anything on T4. And then we'll show a Pit Push. I do wish it was better for Pit Pushing though. It is a little lack in that department. Alright, here's the boss, and dead. Lair bosses are definitely easier for Frenzy than pit bosses. You can still shred pretty much everything in World Tier 4, except for high pits. Because pit bosses are a slight issue, we're going to show off Pit 80. Alright. So if you really like Frenzy, Frenzy is not the strongest, but it is definitely not weak. Like, we are slicing through these guys, no problem. And what you want to do is you want to get guys in big groups as much as possible. And that's when the magic happens for Frenzy. And we get overpowers quite often, and that is because of the runes that we're using, which makes this awesome. This is a really fun build to play. I wish I could find a better way to make bossing a little bit easier, but so far I haven't found it. This build excels with a lot of enemies around. As you can see, it does a decent job of just slicing through everything. So far, Season 9 is pretty awesome, I gotta say. I haven't been able to play a whole lot where it is summertime, but I have been enjoying my time playing this. So try to group up enemies. That's what we use Steel Grasp for. And then it literally slices everything. If you want to use Subo so you can see all the dots on your screen, you can. I'm using Variana for attack speed and for movement speed. Not that we need more, but this is more of a speedy build than a pit pushing build. So because of that, I use Variana. And here's the kind of downside. So with this, we are slow to do bosses. Pit 80 is okay, but 85, it gets quite slow for a boss fight. And really, it shouldn't have to be that slow. That's why this would be more of a speed farming build. It's still really good though, because we could kill the Lair bosses real quickly. But for the pit bosses, they just have too much health. And if you don't have additional enemies around, you can't proc more of your overpowers, which makes a big difference. See, we're overpowering quite decently, but the more enemies you have, the more overpowers you get. And we'll talk about that in a runes. As you can see here, we have more overpowers when the Tomb Lord gets his bones up. Okay, let's walk away from that for a second. Bring these guys in. More overpowers. Speed farming, love it. He doesn't do very well against Astaroth with Frenzy. It's the same issue as this here. So the boss fight with Astaroth is a little bit longer than you'd hope for if you don't have more enemies around you. Sometimes you can get like when some of the nightmare affects is where you have additional enemies to spawn out of nowhere. Those ones are really good for this. Other than that, not a pit pusher. And there we go. And that is the Frenzy Barb. Pit 80, no problem. Pit 85, no problem. Boss fight gets a little long. Definitely better for tier 4 speed farming. In the helmet, we have the Harlequin Crest. In the chest, we have the Shroud of False Death. This is not needed. You could use a generic chest piece with this strength, max life, resist all if needed. And you could use Might or the aspect of Bokathos. They have the Pain Gorger's Gauntlets. To proc these, we are using Steel Grasp and we are using Ground Stomp. Then we have the aspect of Might with greater affix on Frenzy. And for instead of Frenzy duration, you could use Berserk duration or Steel Grasp stuns. For the boots, we use the Mountain God. On the mace, we use the aspect of the Earthquakes with strength, max life, critical strike damage. Chance for Frenzy to hit twice. You only need this on one of your weapons, and you don't even need a good roll on this. As long as you get this above 100%, amazing. And on one weapon, I have my damage tempers between basic damage and critical strike damage. Then we have the Magnum Opus and the Shard of Rathiel, and you can use critical strike gems or basic attack gems. On the sword, we have the aspect of Moon Rising with strength, max life, critical strike damage, critical strike temper, and 1 to belligerence. If possible, get 2 masterworkings on belligerence. Then we have the Ring of Starless Skies with the Idol from Below gem, Bold Chieftain, so we can reset our Wrath of the Berserker and our Ground Stomp. And here we have the Will Breaker gem. And on this ring, I put strength, critical strike chance, shadow resistance, resource generation, and critical strike damage. And then in the amulet, we use the adaptability aspect with percent to strength, critical strike chance, and ranks to counteroffensive with the basic damage temper. And this gem we use is the Seal of Denial. For heraldic powers, we use Disintegrate on our Frenzy. With the Nebulous Extract, we use Sapping Crux to make enemies vulnerable, Fractured Core to get rid of their damage resistance aura, and Invigorating Helix to get more Fortify. Our weapon expertise is Two-Handed Axe. For the skills, we take 7 points into Frenzy, into Combat Frenzy. We take 3 points into Endless Fury, 3 points into Tempered Fury, 4 points into Ground Stomp for Enhanced Ground Stomp and Strategic Ground Stomp, 3 points into Imposing Presence, 3 points into Martial Vigor, 3 points into Belligerence, 3 points into Challenging Shout for Tactical Challenging Shout, 3 points into Warcry for Power Warcry, 3 points into Booming Voice, 3 points into Swiftness, 3 points into Aggressive Resistance, 2 points into Prolific Fury. You don't really need Prolific Fury if you take Endless Fury, 3 points to Pit Fighter, 3 points to Slaying Strike, 3 points to No Mercy, 3 points into Steel Grasp for Warrior Steel Grasp. We want as many charges to Steel Grasp as possible so we can Steel Grasp all the time to proc our Pain Gorgers. 1 point to Thick Skin to get 3 points into Counteroffensive, which is why we want to use the Helix so we can have this up all the time. 3 points into Duelist for more attack speed. 7 points into Wrath of the Berserker for Supreme Wrath of the Berserker, with our key passive being Unconstrained. For our Paragon board, our first board we use Ambidextrous. Our second board is Warbringer, where we use Wrath. Our third board is Decimator, where we take Dominate. Our fourth board is Blood Rage, where we take Challenger. Our fifth board is Weapon Master, where we take Martial. Frenzy is an excellent build to speed farm anything you want on T4. Lair bosses, nightmare dungeons, infernal hordes, anything except pit pushing. This is my go-to build when I just want to run around the map and do some fun things to kill some time if I've only got a half hour or so to play. I love this build. And if you don't have the Harlequin Crest, you can use the Ugly Bastard. And for the runes, we use Lith Tech to make Earthquakes, and Ahu Zan. And this is how we get all of our overpowers. We do get some from Dominate, but most of them are from this rune here. And the first little chunk of health for the boss, where he's healthy, we don't get very many overpowers. This is why when we have a whole bunch of enemies in a group, we have overpowers happening all the time. That's why this is such a good build for speed farming. That's also why it's not a good build for pit pushing, as when you're at the boss, there sometimes isn't many enemies around, and you don't get as many overpowers. But overall, this is still a great build. Really glad that Frenzy is T4 viable. But if you like Frenzy, give this build a try, and if you don't have the mythics, easily swap out to Ugly Bastard, generic chest piece with Bokathos, and use another generic ring with Vehement Brawlers. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.